Dzień dobry Państwu.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to welcome you on behalf of the organizers to the next panel held during the Freedom Games. So we are working under the pandemic formula. We are going to discuss the hot topic which is very popular in Poland. This is the topic of abortion, and the title of the panel is Choice Not a Ban, the Abortion Consensus in the Dustbin of History. My name is Anna Dziewit-Meller. I will be moderating, facilitating this meeting, and the guests include Sylwia Gregorczyk-Abram, who is a Polish lawyer and a social activist. She has co-developed the Free Courts Initiative. That's correct. Katarzyna Stręk is also with us. She's a photographer. She has won a lot of prestigious photo awards. She's traveling around the world and in her work. She is focused on social aspects and recently she has been focused on the reproductive health of women. That is very related with the issue we are going to discuss today. And Natalia Broniarczyk is with us too. She's an activist. She is the face of the Abortion Dream Team, an organization that has a very special place, not only in the debate, but also in the heart of many Poles. So hello, Natalia. And there is also Karolina Domagalska, who is a reporter. She's the author of the book. I'm not going to apologize that I have born a child. She's focused on in vitro insemination subject. So hello everyone. I'm very happy that you've accepted the invitation, and I would like us to develop a time and law perspective. So I would like to ask Sylwia to tell us about the history of this situation we are currently in. So please refer to the change that has occurred in terms of the reproductive rights. I think of the 1950s when there was the total ban on abortion in 1956 during the Stalin government period, and about the current time. So the abortion, the pregnancy termination right has been regulated in different ways throughout the years. There were times when the law has not been regulated at all until in 1993 there was this abortion compromise that was to become a remedy for social disputes, political disputes. So pregnancy termination was allowed in 3 cases. Then, in 1997, there was a moment when the tribunal has addressed the right for abortion. So there was the right that women could have an abortion for social life-related situation. I'm not quite sure, but it was about difficult the situation of women. It was the Left Alliance Party suggestion, but it was deleted. So we had only these 3 reasons. We've got the protection of life since the start. So the problem is that under this compromise, women can have abortion only in 3 cases. So when her life is threatened, or when there are irreversible defects of the fetus, and then it was deleted, it has been deleted, and when the pregnancy is a result of rape. So we have to underline it all the time, not only on the social discussion and debate. We really should hear women and society, and all of a sudden Constitutional Tribunal has introduced the motion signed mostly by men. So the tribunal was requested to check whether this this second reason is in line with the Constitution. So there were no social consultation, no legislative consultations. So at the end of 2015, the tribunal has been working only for the purpose of political decisions. So the tribunal has said no, that this abortion is no longer allowed, but this decision has not been endorsed yet. But if it is endorsed, if it is approved, then women will not be allowed to have abortion due to the lethal defect of the fetus. So Julia Przyłębska and three people who are not really judges, they are the so-called pretend judges, doubled judges. So lots of irregularities have occurred while this verdict was taken. So they deprived women of dignity and the right to protect their health. So it was illegal, and if this verdict is officially announced in autumn, then automatically this right will be enforced and there won't be abortions for the purpose of the lethal defect. I wanted to ask you, because I cannot find a good answer for this question, so please tell me whether, talking about the law, whether I wanted to ask you whether there is a deadline, there is a law, a reason that can be interpreted in this way, that this verdict will have to be published. So what's the reality? I have the feeling that our life is suspended. The situation is so unclear. I don't know how to interpret the situation. Well, we are hostages of politicians, and you could see hundreds of thousands of women and men. Well, everybody is very frightened, and the politicians are quite frightened. They don't know whether they should publish this law or not. President Duda said, well, maybe we should adopt it, maybe not, maybe we should amend it. So now the women's case has been suspended, and there's a dispute among the lawyers. They can't agree whether this verdict should be published or not. But if we say that this is not the verdict, it shouldn't be published. But it's not about the fact that the politicians have abused their rights. Some politicians think that this is a verdict. So if it is a verdict, it should be published. And the president of the Council of Ministers should make this decision in consultation with the Legislation Center. So, of course, there are different reasons. Sometimes we need some time to develop some additional executive regulations. But currently, we do not know any reasons why this verdict has been published or not. The Prime Minister has this technical possibility of deciding whether this verdict can be published or not. Just like Prime Minister Szydło had to act a while ago. So now women do not know what to do if they need an abortion, whether they don't know whether they should go abroad to have this pregnancy terminated. So it has confused the lives of many people. Now I would like to ask Natalia. I would like to ask you about the situation of your organization. Who is approaching you? What has changed during the pandemic period? What has happened after this so-called verdict has been made? So what's the situation right now? So tell us about the practicalities. I would like to start by saying I would like to add something in connection with what Sylvia has said before, dignity has not been available to women either. The law of 1993 has been one of the most restricting laws in Europe. Malta has a very similar act. We have nothing like the protection of life in Polish legislation. The Constitution of Malta has this provision, the same in Ireland. In Poland, in 2007, there was an idea by Marek Jurek, who wanted to introduce the protection of life to the Polish Constitution, and this is when the problem started in Law and Justice Party during that time. In Poland, women terminate pregnancies in the shadow of the political decisions. So abortions are performed, and they are performed thanks to the solidarity, thanks to brave activists, thanks to overcoming individual boundaries. And before the 22nd of October, our organization has carried out our activities under the Abortion Without Borders. So we were helping women to go to Germany, Netherlands, UK, also the Netherlands. So that the terminations were performed under the laws of the respective countries. But it's 89% of our work is the termination at home. This verdict of the tribunal is scandalous. It shows how women are perceived by politicians and authorities in Poland. The abortion reality is a very broad picture, and the decision which limits access to abortion when some lethal defects are confirmed. It constitutes about 1% of all abortions in Poland, and even until now, the abortions were performed outside of Poland because these women could not get any access to the Polish public hospitals. So practically, it was always a problematic issue, legal problems. Sometimes women didn't have energy to oppose doctors' decisions. So sometimes it's very hard to exercise the right for some medical services. Since December 2019, so when our organization launched its activities, we didn't expect that in March there will be pandemic. So this is when we started paying for the abortions abroad. We were helping women to go abroad for abortions, and we have managed to help 220 women. We have been operating for 11 months, but as of the 22nd of October, we have helped 40 people, and on the 23rd of October, a day after the announcement of the decision of the verdict, 5 women in the second trimester who had been informed by the hospital that they shouldn't have approached the hospital because the pregnancy would not be terminated because legislation has been amended and the physicians do not know when this verdict will be published. So the hospitals, just in case, decided to cancel abortions because physicians also worry about the families. They are afraid of legal consequences. So we do not ask the women whether they meet the condition, because we do not need this information to organize abortion in the Netherlands or in the UK. But very often women tell us about their cases. That they think that that this will help them to obtain access to abortion. I know that it was quite controversial, but these last 3 weeks we really hit the record. We have received some 300 telephone calls a day. In the past, 300 calls was a monthly result. So we have been contacted by women with a higher probability of of pregnancy with lethal defects. So the street and the media started talking about helping women to have abortion. So I think this is an effect of the political decision. So the tribunal has exerted a pressure, and people started asking why. What now? What will happen now? So it may seem paradoxical, but to some people it may seem unbeneficial. So. All of a sudden, many women discovered that such organization as yours operate.
Coming back to that question, in the pandemic, many women decided to terminate their pregnancy due to economic reasons. People were losing their jobs, their working conditions deteriorated. There are many people who work with so-called junk agreements, and they no longer felt safe. Many people called us, many women called us and said, I can't continue the pregnancy because I don't know when we are going to come back to work. I'm a waitress. I have lost my job. Our living conditions have deteriorated. How can I make such a responsible decision to bring a baby to life since we have no money to buy food? And this is the abortion reality that neither this government nor previous ones wanted to see that. Many women or many families make decision about abortion analyzing their current situation. We know how to do it and start to wonder, how can I live in a place that I rent? How can I organize my life with a baby? How can I cope with the issue of a relationship in which there is violence? These are our stories. Since 1993, no power, no authority wanted to listen to it. So we went to the street because we decided that we have to be in the center of attention and start to wonder what we're going to do if I get pregnant. I heard such opinions of women saying, I'm afraid to get pregnant in this country. What will I do if that happened? This is an adverse effect, adverse event, but it can take us to a good direction. I will continue this topic, and we'll save it for the last part of our meeting. Now I would like to hand over to Katarzyna, who is dealing with the issues of access to contraceptive pills, to abortion worldwide. Could you briefly tell us about how what your work looked like, and what your observations were? This is the whole project called The Price of Choice. I started it after the black protests in Poland. I live in France, and I have to say that observing what started in Poland and what was happening in the streets, I was inspired by this topic and by the personal stories of the women. For me, as a photographer, all these statistics, laws, regulations translate onto personal stories of women, but not only women, also the whole families, the whole societies. Because if every third woman, and this is the current statistics for Poland and for Salvador, every third woman has terminated their pregnancy at least once in their lives. It means each of us knows a woman who has had or will have an abortion. These are the decisions that are related to stigmatizing and not only to economic problems. Such decisions have very strong impacts on the whole societies and whole families. In 122 countries of the world, abortion is either completely banned, even if it poses a hazard for a woman's life, or it is strongly limited as or restricted, as in Poland or in the USA, where the law states something else than the reality shows. Nowadays, 160 women dies a day due to dangerous abortion worldwide. Usually, these are situations in the third world countries, in 90%, but in 2012, we had a case in Ireland of a woman who died because of poorly performed abortion. It contributed to some changes in the law. I have also worked in the Philippines, in Ireland, Egypt, Salvador, and Poland. From my point of view, the problem of access to abortion and the consequences, which are different because we have such women as Natalia, we live in the European Union when the borders are opened, and the people who have the opportunity to get the money to have the abortion done abroad is different. But other countries, the situation is different. Abortion is the tip of the iceberg. It's the consequence of a lack of access to sexual education, a lack of access to contraception. These are countries which are patriarchal. The life of a woman or the health of a woman, the opinion of a woman matters less than the life, the health, and opinion of a man. Even if the woman has access to contraceptive pills, very often their partners they deprive the women of the intrauterus contraceptive. You asked me to talk about Salvador. Salvador is perceived as the country when women's situation is difficult. There is a very strong feminist group or feminist groups owing to whom the situation is changing. In Salvador, since the abortion law has been restricted in 1996 and it does not allow for terminating the pregnancy, even if a female's life and health is at risk. Women go to prison because of abortions and also because of perinatal complications. According to the law of Salvador, there is no such thing as assumption or presumption of being not punished. I don't know really what it should be called from the legal point of view. This is a Catholic country. What I read here is presumption of innocence. Oh, thank you. One of the ladies just mentioned that. We talk about the potential life, which is much more important than protecting women. Finally, the women who live in difficult conditions, who have no access to healthcare, who were very often who get pregnant as a result of rape, or who often don't know that they are pregnant. 50,000 of them are girls aged 12 to 18 who have at least one child. They are often left alone when the labor starts and complications occur. If during the complications the baby dies, the woman goes to prison. I met a lot of women who were either in jail or who had been in jail and who had not seen their children for many years. Now they fight in the streets on behalf of other women who are still in prison. We don't want Poland to turn into another Salvador. Women are sentenced there or punished there for being women. Based on my experience, I can say that the only law which protects women, including women who are in very difficult situation, as the law should protect those who are in the weakest or the worst situation, the solution is liberalization. Regardless of navigating, in case of the skills to navigate in the virtual world, regardless of access to psychological help, psychological assistance, women should have the right to terminate the pregnancy if this is unwanted pregnancy. This is the only possible law. Any other law will stigmatize, and consequently the people who have such financial opportunities will be able to make such a decision, but those who should be protected will not have such an opportunity. Yes, this is the devastating truth that the rights, the laws are not given once and for all, and we should protect them. For 5 years now, we have been experiencing a kind of shock, which has been cascading, and it has accumulated. Like in the Hungarian salami tactics, as it's called, we are gradually being deprived of the issues that we can influence. Now I would like to turn to Karolina. You wrote an excellent publication about in vitro, which is included in the pool of controversial issues in Poland. people who decide for in vitro procedures don't want to talk about it, not to stigmatize their children, um, not to make their children experience trauma because of something that in Poland it's called a sin. It's a real shame that we are still talking about theological issues here. And this is the language we use. But I would like to ask you the following question. Could you tell us about the families with disabled people? How does our state support and help? Why should we decide to give birth to babies, to children, if we live in such a state? I would like to start saying that if we talk about people with disabilities, we should address these questions to people with disabilities. And it's a real shame that we don't have a disabled panelist with us, as it could be a good idea to include such a person when we talk about them. I don't feel comfortable answering this question. But I could direct this question or redirect towards the topic of our discussion. It often happens that when we talk about abortion, there is an emerging argument about the quality of life of people with disabilities, the rights of people with disabilities. It seems that it is not fully authorized because the debate about abortion is the debate about woman's choice. If we talk about the future life of a disabled child, still we change the subject that we should talk about. I listened to a debate in which Natalia Broniarczyk participated. Katarzyna Bieżanowska, whose Facebook profile I do recommend because she comments on the abortion debate. She mentioned that people with disabilities are treated as subjects. So we talk about fetus with disabilities. I absolutely agree with that. There is no such term, there's no such notion as fetus with disability. There are people, persons with disabilities. So when we talk about abortion, let's talk about abortion and women and other people.
Yes, this theme is quite popular in the West. It's not very popular in Poland. I am talking about the disability pride movement, which of course is very diversified, just like any other large movements. So there are disabled women who are for access to abortion. So we shouldn't distinguish groups that should be allowed and that shouldn't be allowed. So we have these supporters of compromise. These are mainly Catholics, and I think that this is mixing up all the orders that occur. So if somebody has a problem, other people say it's his or her problem, it's not my problem. So this is our reality. I wanted to ask you, whether you have this feeling that we are witnessing the change of paradigm, whether we are at the moment of changes, or this is just an illusion of bubbles we live in. How do you feel? What's your opinion? How does the situation impact entities outside of our bubble, whether this paradigm is following the right direction? So maybe Sylvia, we will start with you. Well, first I wanted to say something I'm always saying. People often ask me, women are very worried that what has happened in the Constitutional Tribunal will impact them for many, many years to come. And I would like to tell them that it's not true. This is not the verdict that will be binding for a long time. It doesn't mean that the Constitutional Tribunal will not be able to change this verdict. So in the future, the tribunal will be able to change this decision. So ladies and gentlemen, it will be possible to have this verdict changed. I'm saying about this because many people worry that this ruling will not be changed. We are lawyers and we will tend to achieve such a situation. There is a change because young people are demonstrating, protesting, and we think that it's wonderful. We are really delighted with young people, with the methods they are acting. But of course, some people are very, very worried. I'm very worried, but young people are making fun. They are making fantastic memes. So I would like to say that now there is very hard civil work for us. We've got a problem. And if we have these protests, if people suddenly reacted, we cannot waste it. So we have to consider whether we should develop this education in our families, among our friends. So the subject of abortion as a human right, it's a very, very popular subject now, and we can talk with young people now. We should listen to them. They are not talking only about the abortion, they are talking about the need for a generational change. They are saying that the state has been cheating them in many areas. So we need to understand their message, and we have to also work on ourselves to make sure that this change will be durable. It will operate for many years to come. So before we were not asking what young people wanted to say. We didn't want to hear about their interest. Now all of a sudden we have noticed them, and we have to continue building the dialogue with young people. It will provide us with a permanent basis, and this is something that is very important for me. So when this generational change occurred in the street, this is my approach. Katarzyna, I'm very hopeful that this is the very important moment. I spoke with one of the activists. I met her in Dublin. Now she's in London. She works in the Abortion Without Borders. She works for a dream team, and she told me, Kasia, I do hope that the situation in the Polish streets now is the same moment which took place in 2012 in Ireland. This is when the community started to be involved. This is when the discussion in Ireland started. I have dealt with the subject of abortion for the past 4 years in Poland. I hope that you will agree with me that now we can see a huge difference. I met with Natalia in Opole. in a loft, in an attic, when there were several girls and they were talking about their activities. We also met a year ago in Warsaw, and this workshop was attended by 70 or 80 people. There were Canadians, English. We were all discussing how we should communicate about abortion, which arguments should be used, how we can help, how we shouldn't help. So this dialogue is going on. I am the author of this famous cover page that was placed on the Wysokie Obcasy magazine. So it was quite controversial, even in feminist groups, because I was using pink color, because the girls were smiling, and they had the text on the t-shirt saying, "Abortion is okay." So abortion is okay. And this is a catchphrase I can see every day in Warsaw. I'm a photographer, and I take pictures during all the protests. And this is one of the leading themes. Well, there are some other catchphrases, but some slogans, but I'm not going to cite them now. So there is a change. There is a potential. Sylvia was talking about that we can benefit from this potential. So we've got a different social discussion. Now, people who so far have not participated in this discussion, all of a sudden they started speaking about this. I think every Polish family talks about this subject. And before, it was a taboo subject. So abortion, even families where abortion was quite a significant subject, these families didn't want to talk about the abortion. I don't think this change will occur immediately. We need discussions like this panel. We need to raise the awareness. We should tell people what abortion is and what abortion is not related with. Now I wanted to ask Natalia, under your organization, the Abortion Dream Team, you are involved in the subject of regaining the language we are using when we're talking about abortion or reproductive health. So I would like you to give us a kind of a glossary how we should speak. We are now followed by many people. Some 500 people are following this panel, so quite a crowd with us. Thank you very much for taking part in this discussion. Thank you for listening to us. It's very important for us to reach you with the message. So the floor is yours, Natalia. Thank you very much. We, as the Abortion Dream Team, from the beginning of our activities, we wanted to overcome the borders. We wanted to create a kind of a discomfort, to make people consider why they find some messages insulting. Cicely Richards said that if you want to make a revolution, you have to stir up lots of problems. And I think this is true. I think that Poles are fed up with politics and talking about abortion in the political context. I think Poles are very tired with the debates on the start of the human life. They are really tired with all these moral issues. We have witnessed it, and we are following this strategy, and it is successful. It has worked for us. So, some of us had abortions or have helped women who needed abortions, and we are talking about abortion. We are talking about it as if we were talking to our best friend. So, if your friend comes to you to talk, don't tell her sad things, distressing things that would frighten her. If, let's say, your friend comes to you and she says, I need to have an abortion, all you have to say is, it's okay, I will be with you. Can I do anything for you? Do not ask her whether, are you sure? Are you absolutely certain? abortion is not the only decision in our lifetime. Even during the abortion, we can consider, we can think whether if we do not make this decision, whether we would be happy. It's the same when we are getting married, when we change work. We have similar dilemmas. So when we decide on having an abortion, we have to be absolutely sure. This is related with the self-discipline. So we need to show this so-called radical empathy. So I'm with you. I'm not trying to assess your decisions. I'm not changing your story into my story. I'm not going to tell you that if I were you, I would never do it. Secondly, try to talk bravely about, try to talk about abortion bravely. Try to talk about abortion not only during political debates or discussions on abortion, but even if you're at your hairdressers. We had women who had abortions with our help. So, for example, most often they had abortion just by taking medication, and they are saying, "Well, I was at the hairdressers, and I asked my hairdresser whether she heard of the pharmacological abortion. I decided that my hairdresser should know about this, and she didn't stop doing up my hair. She was listening to me with great attention. She wanted to hear what I had to say." We should start thinking of the abortion as something we can experience ourselves. We shouldn't perceive adoption only as a topic of a political debate. We should think of the abortion as something that could happen to the person we love. These latest protests have demonstrated that this is the way many people start thinking about the abortion. People should know how they could have abortion done safely and how to deal with unwanted pregnancies. Natalia Przybysz said that what is really important is to experiment with our truth, with our experiences. There are no studies for this, but I think that a great majority of women were waiting for the period to come, and they were wondering what to do if the period would not start. But then the period started, and we could stop considering this problem. So, but if it's a good idea to think whether we would like to be stigmatized only for making the decision on our life. I thank you very much. I am very moved about what you have said. So coming down to the level of ideological fight we've been witnessing for the past 27 years in Poland. And really, it's about the most delicate spheres of our life, such as sex, closeness, family, children, husband, wife, boyfriend, or girlfriend, doesn't matter. This is a dream that all these aspects become deep intimacy. I'm a granddaughter of a gynecologist, and my grandma was telling me about her work. So we are the generation that followed women who experienced abortion. And people used to talk about abortion, but all of a sudden politicians made a decision, and all of a sudden abortion started to be a taboo, and such a problem has never occurred in our families. But statistical data indicate that it's impossible. So when I listen to such debates on abortion, very often these visions are untrue visions, the vision of Catholic idealistic situation. So maybe we should encourage people to have this intergenerational discussion. So the daughters, the granddaughters should speak to the mothers, grandmothers. They should talk about their experience. So let's talk about the past of women from our families, because this is very important to us, to our daughters. So this is my proposal. Karolina. Karolina. What is the role of journalists, of reporters, in terms of this change of the language, which is really under the rule of right-wing politicians? How should we work, we as journalists? What's your opinion? Well, due to this, I'm not really a journalist any longer. It's very hard. These possibilities are limited by the editors and by the way media are managed, papers are managed. And the controversial issues are really treated in a very specific way. So women's rights or dignity of women are sometimes deemed as controversial issues, but I don't think that the situation is hopeless. What is of key importance is to allow women to speak. Women who become pregnant, they should tell us what they need, what they experience. And we should listen how they're talking about it, because their contributions include a lot of suggestions. This is the language of girls who act on the abortion dream team. This language is very effective, it really works. We need to go beyond this ideological debate, and once we are outside of this debate, we see that this covers lots of important issues. It's not about saying who is right and who is wrong. You have also mentioned the question, what is happening outside of our own bubble? A lot is happening outside of our bubble, but I am unable to talk about it because I do not operate in those spaces, but I think what happens in our bubble also requires a lot of efforts. Kasia mentioned the cover, the magazine cover. How people were rebelling against this "abortion is okay" slogan. Still, I can see that there's a lot of self-stigma. We stigmatize ourselves. We are unable to talk about abortion in a normal way. So I think we can do a lot ourselves. I keep working on myself when all the time I can see that there are lots of stigmas, and it's a kind of a cultural baggage we carry. So when we talk about abortion, immediately some terms are addressed, and then I start considering, well, maybe I've said something wrong. These classical arguments do not cause any response. I do not want to talk about when the life starts. And a small appeal from me, because really we would like to appeal to the society. So I would like to appeal to a male audience of this panel. This is the time. If you want to speak about abortion, please consider whether this is really necessary. Just consider what you would like to say and consider whether it really is necessary, because maybe it's time that women who become pregnant should speak about abortion. Thank you. Thank you. This is a very important appeal. And just to end this discussion, we've got 5 minutes left. We are quite radical as far as time is concerned. So I would like to ask Kasia to tell us how the Irish proceeded, because the pre-referendum moment, before the referendum, there was a very exciting time in Ireland. So I would like to know whether we could translate it, transfer it into Poland. If we were to write these questions to referendum, who should write these questions and what kind of questions should be asked? So let's talk about this. Okay, I will try to be brief. Firstly, the situation in Ireland is very different. It's a much smaller country where there are only several millions of people. Catholic Church is important in Ireland, but it didn't have a role to develop, to construct the society. And this role of the Catholic Church is very important in Poland. Poland is a free country because the Catholic Church in 1980s has been very helpful to Poland, and that's why the Catholic Church is quite an authority. In Ireland, the situation was different. In Ireland, in 1983, the constitution has been amended. According to the Irish legislation, to change the constitution, you needed to have a referendum. So it wasn't possible to introduce a liberalizing the law introducing abortion without eliminating the Eighth Amendment. So first they had to decide that they didn't want to have this amendment stating that embryo, that the fetus life is the same as the women's life. So in 2012, a woman died in an Irish hospital. She was in the 17th week of her pregnancy, and some signs of her fetus indicated that the fetus was alive were detected, but it was a stillbirth, and she died of sepsis. So in 2012, thousands of people started protesting, and in 2016, in February, and then in June, the UN and the Committee for Human Rights and counteracting tortures have requested the Irish government to change the legislation, because it has been decided that this law is cruel and treats women with cruelty. So 2 years were spent to prepare a new legislation. So during these 2 years, all feminist groups were using the slogan "Yes for change." So everybody was to agree to reject this amendment. So there were about 200 smaller and bigger groups that not necessarily agreed in connection with other aspects, but they could unify to achieve this one change. It was a priority. Anything else was not that important, but it took them 2 years to work really hard for voluntaries to go to families, to visit families. So this is the time we should copy. So it's about talking while having tea. So I am talking about my job during parties, and I find out that everybody wants to know more about this topic. So this kind of a basic work is very important because we have to change the way of thinking for people to be able to understand this problem, and only then ultimately we will gather sufficient social support. 17 seconds left. Firstly, that's great that you have explained why this referendum was in Ireland. There is no referendum in Poland. That's great that you've said it. That's why we don't have a referendum. Two patients have filed complaints, and this is something, I'm looking at Natalia, we are dealing with these two complaints, and definitely we will use these opportunities. Thank you very much for the meeting. I can only tell you that we didn't have enough time because you need more time, more people to discuss such important issues. Thank you for watching us. I hope that we will have more such debates. We keep meeting, and please remember the main message of the meeting is let's talk. Thank you very much. It was the meeting. Choice, not ban. So Sylwia Gregorczyk, Kasia Stręk, Karolina Domagalska, and Natalia Broniarczyk. Thank you very much.